Perspective spirituale? Da. Salut! Sunt Costică Cojocaru și te invit să fii alături de mine. Vei întâlni cu siguranță oameni frumoși și povești reale.
Bine ați revenit la Perspective spirituale. Astăzi avem o emisiune mai specială din mai multe motive. În primul rând suntem la Costinești, iar în al doilea rând l-am invitat pe un bun prieten care este rudă cu Isaac Newton, Benedict Newton. Bine ai venit și îți mulțumesc că ai acceptat această invitație.
Thank you for the invitation.
Vom vorbi în limba română și în limba engleză, vom traduce ulterior, tocmai pentru a ne putea exprima cât mai corect. Benedict, cum ai început tu practica yoga? Cum ai descoperit practica yoga în viața aceasta?
I had a very good life, we could say ordinary life, quite fulfilled. But there was always a feeling that there was something missing. From a young age, there was always an interest in spirituality, in philosophy, in mystery, magic, these kind of things growing up. And also grew up as a Catholic. So there was a certain feeling as a young age with the church. But like a lot of people in the West, it went through, I guess, what we would call a crisis of faith, given the institution of the church these days. And then as I went more into an ordinary life, I realized still that there was something, there was an inner calling, there was a lack of inner peace. As you say, something, am rămas neliniștit. Yeah? So I was looking for something. And then through some traveling and being in Romania, just on a weekend visit, I met some people, got talking to them, and they told me about yoga.
Și ai descoperit ce lipsea? Ți-ai dat seama pentru că tu ești catolic sau ai fost catolic. Încă mai ești catolic?
Yes and no in the same time, if that makes sense, because I don't feel that limiting or defining by any particular religion is necessarily productive. I've also been baptized with an Orthodox name now. Benedict is the Orthodox given name. So what I discovered through my own spiritual journey and studies and research was that the deeper, authentic truths of any spiritual path transcend any labeling, any framework, any institution. That the essential truths of the spiritual reality are the same.
Putem face diferența dintre convingerile noastre personale sau convingerile societății în care trăim și credința reală, să înțeleg.
Yes, exactly. The way that society is presenting things, and especially you can see the separations that come through religion, through various things, are aimed to actually keep us distracted and away from discovering the underlying unifying principle that exists in any authentic spirituality.
Cum te simți ca un descendent al unui om care a avut o influență majoră în perspectiva întregii lumi?
It's a very interesting thing, and it's also, I would say, amusing in some ways when I hear the name in the lectures, because there is a resonance. And I know I was also given the nickname Savantul at a certain moment because of that name. And what's, I think, been also very interesting for me is also to discover that not only was Newton, considered to be the founder of modern physics, but he was also very deeply into the esoteric research, which was kind of more of a hidden side of him that he didn't make public so much during his life, but he was very much into the esoteric search as well. So somehow it makes sense. It's a resonance, as we'd say, given by the name. Because myself also, I feel very inspired and very interested by the combination of practical observation, so let's say the scientific approach, which is also based and supported by the studies, the teachings, and the practices of the spiritual traditions, both yoga and tantra, which increasingly in the modern age are coming closer and closer together and creating that fusion. And I think that really allows you to make the leap of consciousness, to understand the underlying reality of the principles, the spiritual principles that have been spoken about for thousands of years in the spiritual teachings, which are also being shown to underpin more and more scientific discoveries.
Cum îmbini tu acum știința și spiritualitatea, știind că ești și IT-ist, lucrezi în domeniul IT și vii dintr-un domeniu foarte rațional, foarte științific și totodată ți-ai deschis sufletul către spiritualitate?
It's been a interesting transformation, let's say. I think the interesting thing is also even my approach in IT, because, you know, in the IT world it's constant updates and things forever apparently changing on the surface, but the underlying, let's say, mechanics of a lot of the IT systems and a lot of the IT software, especially the Microsoft products and things, is a lot of it is still the same. They changed the front end, so you could say the physics of it is the same. And this has kind of been paralleled in the spiritual experience, where you see that actually the underlying principles, the essence of things, give you access to the deeper truths, the deeper reality, and actually mean that whatever you're doing in life, whether it's spiritual practice, whether it's integrating in the world, if you integrate the principles, which are the essence of the spiritual teachings, then it doesn't matter whether we speak about spirituality or an integration in a job, it's the same. There is no separation. And that's, I think, one of the greatest things you come to learn. So actually, as you say, how do you combine this, you know, being an IT consultant, an IT professional with spirituality, is that you start to realize that there is no separation. That, you know, in this world you find the creativity, the inventions, the inspirations of God manifesting in many different ways, and you discover actually the godly principles are behind the formation of anything that works harmoniously and integrated, even at the level of business. The same principles are there.
Aceasta este tantra.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pentru că ai reușit să integrezi totul în sfera conștiinței tale. Și atunci există totul în armonie. Ce impact a avut școala de yoga asupra ta? Pentru că mi-ai spus că tu ai avut o viață foarte fericită în Anglia. De ce ai schimbat o viață fericită să vii la cursul de yoga?
Well, I guess the simple truth in that was that as happy as you feel when there's something missing, there is an awareness of a lack of fulfillment somewhere. And the existential search, if you like, of humanity, or at least as I perceive it, philosophically speaking, is that search for happiness, that search for the fundamental fulfillment, which we speak about as, you know, experiencing the state of Ananda, or experiencing the state of Samadhi, or this, you know, complete fusion with the supreme consciousness. And where it's made the greatest transformation is exactly that realization, as you said, the tantric approach, which I also feel a lot of people still misunderstand tantra and limit it to some areas, whereas actually it's the complete integration of every experience into life and the discovery of the godly reality through that. And this also meant that my day-to-day life became an experience with God. And it also helped me relax much more, let's say, into the craziness of the world, you know, where the souls are asleep, where people are turning away from God, from the spiritual reality, being caught in materialism, which, if you don't integrate that deeper spiritual understanding correctly, can lead to your own inner schism, your own inner separation. In fact, actually, is a form of spiritual ego in that moment. And for me, it helped very, very much to realize that there is an underlying godly order, a realization that all of the incarnated souls are themselves on their journey at different stages, and to therefore become less judgmental, more detached, and therefore more at peace in what I feel to do, or what I'm inspired to do, and therefore to, I would say, allow the best to manifest, and not to be dissuaded or off-put by the lower vibrations or distractions of the people in the world. I guess in some ways it becomes that your life becomes a practice of karma yoga.
În general, fiecare religie are Dumnezeul ei. Și asta ne separă foarte mult și de aceea există și foarte multe tensiuni sau există foarte multe războaie la ora actuală în lume. Și totuși ai spus despre atributele dumnezeiești. Cum vezi această realitate în ceea ce privește atributele dumnezeiești și cum te-au apropiat pe tine de Dumnezeu?
These attributes really, when they manifest in people, transcend any cultural or spiritual, religious boundaries. Because we're talking about, let's say, characteristics that people manifest at the level of the soul, the level of the heart. So, and we cannot limit and define people by, you know, like, as there is a tendency to do in the media, that, you know, be afraid of people from a certain country, be afraid of people from a certain religion, because everywhere you go, there are good people, there are not so good people. And whenever you meet the good people, and I had occasion in my life, I mean, growing up in England is very multicultural, much more so than in Romania, for example. So I met many people from many different religious and spiritual backgrounds, you know, from people from Pakistan, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, evangelists, and also when I came to Romania, you know, talking with Orthodox priests and monks, when somebody is open in the heart, then the separation doesn't exist anymore. They see the unity in this, and that unity in itself is a manifestation of a godly attribute. And when you start to then have more deeper and profound conversations with such people, we actually realize that what is underpinning their own convictions, their own beliefs, in the most beneficial and aspiring way, is the godly attributes.
Ai venit în România prima dată în 2003 și ai avut contact cu școala de yoga. Totuși, în 2004 a fost un mare scandal mediatic și ai ales să rămâi în această școală de yoga. Ce ai găsit ca valoare și ce te-a determinat să rămâi în această școală de yoga?
I was inspired to come to Romania after an experience in England at Stonehenge and at the Stone Circle in Avebury. So in this area of England, which is quite well known for its spiritual energy and spiritual charge. And it was in 2004. I'd visited Romania already in 2003. I'd started the course. And in 2004, the spiritual guide came and held 2 spirals, and one at Stonehenge and one at Avebury. And I had such powerful experiences there. And of course, being, as you said, Newton with the scientific mindset, I went there and I was very open-minded to kind of see what it was. And at the time I was quite sportive. I was playing sports 4 times a week. And we did this spiral at Stonehenge, which only lasted 45 minutes, but it was almost impossible to stay on my feet. The energies were so strong.
What you feel?
Just a surge of energy through the legs, you know, and when you're playing sport 4 times a week, and you're probably in those 4 running 20K, you know, you think standing on your feet for 45 minutes, holding hands with a bunch of people, listening to some music, is like, well, that's not a big problem. But it was so powerful, and discovering afterwards that, you know, feeling this energy flowing through the body, discovering afterwards that it was connected to what's referred to as telluric energy coming out of the earth there, and the Stonehenge is a very powerful force center of this. And from there we went to Avebury, and again we did another 45-minute spiral, yang spiral meditation. And this time I shut my eyes and I had a translation in time. I didn't know what I called it at the time, but since, through the experiences in the school, I realized this is what it was. Where I was in exactly the same spot, but like some thousands of years back in the past, and I had my eyes closed, but I could see everything. The grass was long, I could smell the grass, I could hear the birds, and I could see the stones there, which were now in the present reality, weathered and old, and I could see them as fresh, like freshly hewn, you know, big, square. And they started to communicate with me. They started to explain how they hold this memory of Earth because of their passage of time and what they experience and how it's stored within the crystalline structure. And I was stood there like surprised, because I had absolutely no interest in crystals or anything. I wasn't like some kind of new age spiritual person or anything like this. I was a regular family man in England, but yet I was having this experience. And I remember at the time with my eyes closed going, I'm not mad. I'm not, you know, this is really happening. And just allowing it to unfold. And through this understanding actually how, in a way, the stones explain to me actually how these stones, as I say, store this memory, but also how they're able to share their energy. And actually after that I got more interested in crystals. So after having that experience, it was like, okay, I have no idea what's going on, but I want to know what this is. And therefore I had the opportunity in that moment, because I was travelling from Nottingham, where I lived, to the nearest school, which was in Oxford, which was an hour and a half by car there and an hour and a half back, and I was doing that every week. And it was a choice to either go to London or move to Romania. And I decided I wanted to go to the centre, to go where, I guess, where the greater knowledge was, where the greater depth was, where the greater intensity. You know, the closer you go to the centre of something, the more intense it is. So after this experience, for me it was very, very clear that I wanted to understand more, to go deeper into it. So I had the choice of either moving to London or going to Romania. And I chose Romania because I felt there was where the source of this, I mean, the school, I understood by then the school had started in Romania and it had already been existing for a number of years. And it was just an inner calling. So I made arrangements and basically gave up everything in England to come to Romania and follow this path.
Câți ani ai rămas în România după această experiență?
I came in 2004 for an experience. It was 6 months, and as you said before, it was right in the middle of this media scandal, and not only media scandal, but a lot of upheaval, let's say troubled times, and to find a community that was really being repressed and was really being vilified, demonized, if you like, and to see actually, you know, very, very good people, ordinary people, let's say, you know, ordinary in the sense that, you know, they were a mixture of people like you would expect to find anywhere in the world, but who all shared a same common thread of spiritual aspiration, of wanting to discover something in life more profound, to want to live in a more, let's say, wholesome, godly way. So the more I felt that, and also the way that I felt the hearts of the people here. They were it was very open, it was very receiving, even in difficult times, and that impressed me. I mean, I do remember at the time coming to Romania in 2003, it was like the Wild East, you know, not the Wild West of America, but the Wild East, because, let's say, the social structure and the general infrastructure and the bureaucracy and the black money and the black market, the things that are well known about Romania, were a surprise, you know, that kind of chaotic way of life. But beyond all of that, there was this community that was really striving for something better, something beautiful, something wholesome. And so I started to participate, going to the yoga classes. It was only yoga at the time, tantra courses hadn't started back then. And also taking part in various groups. There were so many activities. And it was so beautiful also to see and to feel this aspiration, this power of mobilization. All kinds of activities with angels, with self-revelation, meditations, various spontaneous actions, spirals, all kinds of things. And people would go, or something would be like, in 2 days we need to do this, and there would be this force of like, yes, we do this, we do it together, we support each other, you know, this energy. And it was just so inspiring. And I realized that the whole thing, you know, the actual, the soulful manifestation of the people in their search for God and actually that togetherness in a community was really what I was looking to be part of.
Ai locuit în comunități spirituale în România?
I did, yeah. I had some experiences in there. They were interesting, especially because my first experiences were when all the troubles were going on. So it was a bit chaotic. And coming from England at the time, I wasn't so used to having certain rules about, I don't know, simple things about writing down when you do your yoga practice, or announcing if you're not going to be staying in the yoga houses during the night. So, you know, common sense rules, but for, I guess, being English, it's like, we didn't think about those things, so. But again, it was also very, very impressive by the activities that were going on there. Again, the communal practices in the evenings, the meditations, the karma yoga, just the whole kind of general way it was of creating this environment where people could really devote time to their practice. And this devotion to the practice, this devotion to the spiritual guide, this devotion to everything that was being offered. Because I have to be honest, when I first came, I came open-minded, but you can say with a healthy skepticism, right? As in, like, I don't come on blind faith. And I was very attentive in the beginning to the teachings. I was very attentive to what the spiritual guide was saying. I was very attentive to how people were living, because I was looking for any kind of incoherence, which would show some kind of falsehood or deviation. But as much as I allowed my mind to probe it, the reality, the attentive observation was that there was no deviance whatsoever between what was said in the teachings, how the spiritual guide was manifesting. The authenticity of it, even after 6 months, was undeniable. And for that, it was then, well, this is it. I don't need any other. I don't need to go to India. I don't need to find some Swami or something else elsewhere, because this is authentic. So if it's authentic, then it can only go in one direction. So I noticed that inside of myself, that after that 6 months and that careful observation, that I just was like, yes. And here I am after 20 years.
Te-am văzut de foarte multe ori în activități de karma yoga. Cum ai integrat acest sistem karma yoga, știind mai ales că în vest se practică foarte mult voluntariatul? Acum în est, prin practica yoga, ai întâlnit și sistemul karma yoga. Ce ți-a plăcut, de ce ai practicat și ce rezultate ai avut?
I felt as I got more connected, more integrated into the school, that also a natural calling to offer myself, to offer, let's say, my skills, my qualities, and also, this understanding of karma yoga also deepened. We can compare it in a way to charity work in the West, or voluntary work, as you say, but it's something much deeper. It's something much more profound because of its spiritual integration. But actually, what got me into it in the beginning was I felt very, very strongly the subtle connection with the spiritual guide. And I wanted to start to, I would go to the courses. So the courses always would have the recordings with him, the old recordings from the 90s, and the old tape cassettes. And there was just something so beautiful in listening to him and seeing him and just feeling this connection. And of course, in the beginning, not understanding Romanian, and Romanian's not so easy to learn, especially for an English guy. I felt this growing enthusiasm to be more involved. The richness, the depth of the teaching was, for me, it felt so important to get it into the world. So I started to learn Romanian, not in any way other than just being here, listening to it, talking to people, picking it up as I went along, and actually most of all by listening to his lectures, because he speaks with a rhythm that makes the words easier to catch, and also because of the language he uses and the Latin roots, it's easier to correlate it to, we could say, the Latin aspects of English. And from there, then, I slowly started to translate. And I always, just seeing like yourself and so many other people over the years, offering themselves all the time to, in a way, make this sacrifice that comes with karma yoga of creating something that's for the benefit of so many other people. And this whole thing was what inspired me eventually to also become a teacher, to get this knowledge to the world, because the amount of wisdom that arrives in the West from the East is limited by the understanding of the Romanian language, and especially the nuances of it. And this was also, I think, also why I enjoyed my time here being in the center, because feeling that depth, that maturity. And so everything combined just inspired me.
Care este relația ta cu ghidul spiritual? L-ai întâlnit prima dată la Stonehenge. Care a fost prima ta impresie și ce impresie ai acum, după aproape 20 de ani de practică yoga?
It's been an interesting journey. It's so interesting to observe the transformations inside of me, the transformations in this relationship. And in the beginning, so I met him at Stonehenge. I mean, he was there. We got to give him a hug at the end, which was like the strangest feeling in some ways, because I felt so clumsy. Normally quite relaxed and everything. I felt so clumsy around him, which was quite a surprising experience. So to meet him for the first time was a surprise, because you have an image, thoughts of how a spiritual guide will be. And my first impression, because who is this little guy, and it's kind of like that. You laugh about it now, but it was exactly that, because he came and he was, in his famous leather jacket and his trousers, and it was like, okay, this is the spiritual guide. This is interesting. But then, as I said, when I went to give him the hug, it just felt I felt so clumsy. He felt somehow, even though he was small in front of me, he felt so big in the same time, like I couldn't embrace him in my arms. And I remember feeling after a while, I was like walking away, I was like, oh, wow, what a klutz, how clumsy I felt in that. But alongside that, the experience I'd had in the spirals was astonishing. So when I came to Romania, and I think one of the most beautiful experiences for me being in Romania was being around so many people who had a profound relationship with the spiritual guide over many years. And in one of the integrations in one of the yogi houses, I also had the privilege to meet people who had really been there with him from the beginning, and to start to hear certain stories, and hearing stories from the people who lived in these yogi houses, in the ashrams. And there was just something so beautiful in it, because you would feel this love, you'd feel this devotion. And there were so many funny stories, so many beautiful stories, and also I remember when I first came here, and right from the beginning I was involved in some forms of karma yoga, that on my first birthday here, there was just a knock on the door, and there was a guy from the yoga school there with just 2 huge bags of presents. And it was like such a shock, and just the amount and the generosity, because like completely unexpected, and all kinds of items in there of, how shall I say, traditional Romanian culture, like pot bowls, one of these traditional Romanian shirts and everything. And it was such an overwhelming feeling of love and generosity in that. And then I started to notice that through these stories, I was feeling like this deeper connection with him. And even in the beginning, when I was experiencing problems, like challenges, like confusions, I would somehow relate to him. I would like pray or speak to him silently, internally, like saying, look, please help me, please show me the answer, you know, or be on the verge of writing a letter to him. And every time I did that, an answer came in one form or another. Like you'd go to the course and exactly the course that was that week would have the answer for you. Or you would meet somebody in the school and they would spontaneously tell you something, and it was like, ha, that's what I needed to hear. Or I even started to have dreams with him, quite deep, profound dreams. And I started to feel more and more the heart awakening, and more the soul awakening. And I started to come to realize that actually one of my preferred practices, in fact, probably my practice I identified the most with, which is what I came to discover later through study of Kashmir Shaivism, is this identification with the spiritual guide, which is taken from the Shiva Sutras, where it says the guru is the path. And also what he was transmitting to us through the teachings, and he was often send these quotes that he was once how we are, and eventually we will become like him. You know, we always laughed, joked after that, in about 3 billion years, you know, this kind of thing. But it was, for me, it's always been, and I realized it was something I was always looking for in life. Even when I was young, I was always looking for role models, people who could inspire me, people I could look up to. And I found that in him. And it's been, you know, the same process, you know, even after 20 years. As my own journey expands and develops into, you know, teaching more and trying to offer more and trying to awaken souls, it's always trying to resonate, identify as much as possible with, like, to give my best, or to, how would he do it, you know? What is the right way? What does he teach us? What's the principle behind it? And that's just continued to deepen the relationship, and this is also why for years now, coming to the camps and translating and getting more involved, and because it's just so important to get it out, but it's also such a great joy. Such a great joy in this. It's so fulfilling. It's like, you know, beyond all of the hard work, there is just such a peace and fulfillment in doing this. So that gap that was missing, that I spoke about right in the beginning, when, you know, why were you looking for yoga, is just being filled up, and the more that's being filled up inside of me, the less is needed outside, but the more there is to offer. So in a way, it's like allowing this spiritual energy, this godly energy, these godly attributes, if you like, because this has also been part of that increasingly in the past years, since the introduction of the godly attributes, is seeing the manifestation of those and becoming more and more aware of what he is offering, the spiritual guide is offering, in the teachings and in his interactions with us. And through this identification of starting to even see life through that spectrum of reality, that the more and more conscious we become, the more and more awoken on the soul we become, that we approach the present moment, we approach any situation in a way to manifest the qualities, the attributes that are needed to bring things to the best, to help people to awaken, to help souls to awaken. And that just continues to deepen the relationship is, I guess it's a process of identification. Ideally, eventually a process of samyama, to have the perfect identification. And I feel that that's a very, very fulfilling practice for me.
Ai avut două călătorii. O călătorie în 45 de minute la Stonehenge și o călătorie în 2 decenii într-o altă realitate. Cum se simte sufletul tău și ce ai experimentat sau care este concluzia sufletului tău dacă privești acum condensat aceste două călătorii, pentru că doar sufletul tău le-a experimentat?
I feel personally it's a very profound transformation that's been, let's say, benchmarked by the start of the journey with Stonehenge and quite frankly, what I would say personally a number of astonishing experiences in the 20 years which continue. And there's a very beautiful paradox for me in it, that I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago. Even the new name, the baptism name, it's like this is more me, who I am now. Even when I say my old name, which my parents still call me by, it's like it's another person, another reality that I was born that, but I'm no longer that. And the paradox is that in the same time, there is a part of me that has remained the same, Maroa Chash. And I become more and more conscious of that part. And that part is remaining unchanged regardless of the passage of time on the exterior. And I would say that that's the most profound part of it for me.
Și acum ai înțeles această expresie, mereu același?
Yes.
Ce reprezintă pentru tine?
And for me that represents the essence of everything. The unchanging reality, the essence of who we are, the self, if you want to term it like that, the Atman that resides within us. But also much more profoundly that essence of us which is the reflection of God in manifestation.
Cu toată această cunoaștere, pentru că ești instructor de yoga, instructor de tantra, ai studiat shivaismul cașmirian, ai studiat astrologie, cu ce gânduri te îndrepți acum către toți ceilalți oameni? Care este scopul tău acum?
The purpose, the scope is to continue going deeper. Which means that doing what God has set before me. It's an interesting thing and this is something I've discovered in the last 2 years, of living safely in uncertainty. Being in the present moment, being ready to have that openness, that faith. It's really been a deepening of faith in the past 2 years, on a level that was, I thought I had faith before, but to allow yourself to completely abandon and to trust in God, and even allow things to be things you've dreamed of, things you've wanted in life to be taken away. That the essence of, let's say, your dharma, because this is actually what I come to understand in all of this, is that each of us has a specific dharma, a specific purpose, which is by following that, we deepen our self-knowledge and actually becoming that unique manifestation of the self, which is the oneness of God in the multiplicity. Each of us plays, to use an analogy, each of us plays our instrument to perfection in the orchestra to create a very beautiful godly symphony. And I feel, and the interesting thing is through the practice, through the studies, through the impulses I feel in my soul, through the study of my astrological chart, you can see that, again, you look at many different things and you find the one reality is that to come and to teach and to share and to offer and to bring knowledge or to share knowledge is a big part of what I'm meant to be doing, because I feel that inner calling, I feel that peace in it. It's like teaching is one of my greatest practices, because it's also so illuminating to teach, because you're constantly evaluating where you are at as a student and where the gaps are in your practice and where the gaps are in your knowledge and how well you know yourself, and learning, again, the tantric thing, how to integrate all those different energies, the different needs of people you meet and students, and into a integrated oneness that brings inspiration to souls. So this, doing what I've been called to do for the past 10 years, and each of us have this, you know, we have this uniqueness in us, which is self-knowledge. You have to be you. That you has a certain manifestation in this reality. And beyond that, of course, there is the deeper you, which is the I. But first of all, you have to learn to embrace yourself fully, to be, I guess it comes back to what Gandhi says, you know, to be the change you want to see in the world, which means being that what you are rather than that what you're not.
Este foarte interesant pentru că mi-a adus în discuție un aspect, și anume Mahatma Gandhi. Anglia este cea care a dominat India foarte mult timp și Mahatma Gandhi a fost cel care a fost primit în vizită de către Casa Regală. Cum îi privești pe acești oameni și ce lecție ai învățat tu personal, observând și cursul istoric, dar și natura spirituală, adică sensul spiritual?
I guess it's an interesting karma of the English Commonwealth and the domination of various countries around the world, and the material objectifying of their spiritual traditions, and not only in India but in other countries. Which in a way is, you know, it's an interesting paradox there again, because all of the countries that they colonized, of course the nationals of those countries eventually moved to England and slowly colonized England, which made it multicultural. For me, it was beautiful to grow up in that, because I had a lot of, as I said before, I had a lot of friends from different ethnic backgrounds. So I already had, you know, experiences of various Hindu traditions and Hindu culture and various things. So from the spiritual sense, for me, it was, and I guess this is also connected to my philosophical approach to life, that thing of wanting to see the unity in the diversity. So it's interesting to see the karma that England has to suffer from that, with the whole, and which carries on with Brexit and but somehow I feel very detached from it. It's like, again, part of this journey now is like, yes, I'm English, but actually the English soul is not that part of England, not that part of the history. It's much richer, it's much deeper. It's the energy you find in Stonehenge, in Avebury, in Glastonbury. That I resonate with. For me, in a way, this modern English civilization is more of a case of the emperor's new clothes, pretending to be a lot, but basically naked with not much to show. So, yeah, the excessive focus on the materialism there, I feel, is a big obstacle in England. The English people, by nature, are very, very down to earth, very practical. But there is definitely some spiritual blockages there. I have this feeling that England is the land of my forefathers, the land of the blood family. But if I'm speaking spiritually, then actually I was spiritually born or reborn in Romania. And Romania is my spiritual home. And I feel this all the time. To the degree in which that the importance of coming to these camps, Costanești and Herculana, it's so rich and so nourishing for my soul. I feel that all the time coming back here, that I come home. I meet friends, I meet family, I meet something very, very rich. And again, part of the spiritual teachings and the spiritual tradition says, exactly that the ties of the spiritual family are much more profound and much more deep than any blood ties.
Mie îmi place să spun de obicei că am avut sau avem un soft implementat. Pentru că dacă te-ai fi născut în Sahara, ai fi trăit ca în Sahara. Dacă te-ai fi născut la Polul Nord, ai fi trăit ca la Polul Nord. Deci, practic, ne adaptăm locului unde noi ne naștem și ne aducem în sfera conștiinței acele tradiții, acele obiceiuri. Pentru evoluția spirituală, ce consider că este cel mai important acum? Ținând cont de faptul că deseori ființa umană are un soft inoculat în conștiința ei.
There is a feeling of a certain nourishment of the roots, let's say, in England. But for me, one saying that's always stood by me is that home is where the heart is. And I think that's the richest nourishment. And I feel that if you're properly connected to yourself, your center, your essence, and you really feel that awakening of the soul and that profound heart connection with the world, with God, then really you can be at home anywhere. But then, of course, there are certain affinities and certain necessities of the soul, and I feel that for me, that there is a certain necessity for my soul with this feeling, this heart here. I mean, I can even, astrologically speaking, my sun is in the 9th house. So a sun in the 9th house means, ninth house is traditionally associated with travels and overseas and spiritual search, with teacher, with student, with all of these kind of things. So therefore it's also that the discovery of the soul, the awakening of the soul, happens through expansion of consciousness, through traveling abroad, through meeting different cultures, by understanding the oneness in diversity, which are exactly all the themes I'm talking about. And this is counterbalanced by a moon in exile in the fourth house. So the fourth house is relating to home. And of course, the moon in exile means it's like you don't feel at home. And it's true. And always growing up, even before coming to the school, I was always much more attracted to relationships with non-English women, for example. You know, simple things, or I'd feel so comfortable going abroad. It's not that I don't feel at home in England, but I don't have that. If I'm not there, it's not like something's missing. Yes, I can go there and I can feel that specific nourishment. But this connection, this necessity of the soul, and this is part of the mystery. As I said, when I started, and actually this is how I came to learn astrology. I started to look at myself, deepening my own self-knowledge of who am I, by looking at the placements of the planets and understanding myself better, and actually seeing that the inclinations and the impulses and my journey, how it manifests in the exterior reality, is somehow mirrored and reflected in the astrological chart, even just the aspects I mentioned. So it's, you come to a place of like, well, then don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when you look at your life and go, I never expected it to come out like this, you know. You asked me 25 years ago, where would you be in 25 years? I have no way to imagine this. I would imagine that I would be in my nice house somewhere in England. But, you know, the ways of God are full of mystery, as we say. And that's the beauty of the journey, of letting that unfold, letting that journey help you discover yourself.
Dacă ar fi să exprimi 3 valori care sunt importante pentru tine acum, care sunt acele 3 valori importante pentru tine?
I think to ask me 3 values is a challenge. I think the fundamental value for me is love.
It's not just for you.
Not just for me, hopefully for everybody, but the importance of it, but also it's a very, to understand love is a very, very profound thing. And I think this is also, or in my own experience, very, very transforming to really understand the difference between love, desire, compromise, various things like this, which we term as love, but are not. And actually how love is a value and an energy that underpins so much in life, and really is a gateway of access to a very profound mystery and reality of this ineffable presence of God. And for me personally, I feel this through love, and that's why it's a very, very important, also very private and intimate value for me. I'd say the second value is authenticity. I think it's very, very important to be authentic. I feel it's also incredibly important to be authentic on the spiritual path. And one of the things I've also come to realize is that it's all right to struggle. You don't have to be pretending. We're caught very easily in ego traps. We're on a spiritual path. We have to be in a certain way. This isn't spiritual. You have to sublimate this. You have to transcend this. Well, yes, beautiful idea, beautiful principle. But sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes you've got to work with it. Sometimes you've got to be gentle with yourself. Sometimes you've got to push yourself. And you see, that whole process is a process of authenticity. It's a process of deepening self-knowledge. And personally, what I feel here is that sometimes even, let's say, some of the so-called problems that are experienced in the school, or even experienced by some of the projections that come from people who have left the school, is down to a lack of authenticity, which would actually naturally lead into the third value for me, which is responsibility. Is that you take responsibility for your choices, for your life. You can't blame anybody else if it doesn't turn out how you like it, because it turns out how you made it. It's just the fact that you've not been authentic, you've not been responsible enough, you've not been loving enough, to use the three values quite simply. And this responsibility is also that actually to walk the spiritual path really means to assume a great responsibility. And then to become a teacher, to be in front of other people, to try and be a model of spirituality, is also a huge responsibility. And again, it's very easy in such positions to put masks of spiritual ego or spiritual authority on, rather than also, as I was saying before, one of the gifts of being the teacher is the fact that you're constantly looking in the mirror at what you need to be transforming in yourself. And this is also part of the journey and the transformation in the world, is that to go out and to be the best you can be, to live to the principles and the values that you truly believe in, and which are fundamentally the spiritual values, the spiritual teachings, the godly attributes, means that you're in a constant state of transformation, a constant state of evolution. And for me, those three values, authenticity, responsibility, and love, underpin the journey.
În finalul emisiunii, în primul rând aș dori să-ți mulțumesc încă o dată că ai dat curs acestei invitații. Aș dori să vorbim un pic în limba română, pentru că tu știi și limba română.
Foarte bine.
Foarte bine, dar înțelegi foarte bine și ai învățat foarte mult în această direcție.
Da. Da, chiar aș spune că 95% înțeleg. Gramatic, e mai complicat. Și să mai exprim mai în profunzime, uneori nu chiar găsesc cuvântul potrivit. Și lângă aceasta, bineînțeles, am acest accent englez, care unii spune că e moldovenesc.
Nu este moldovenesc.
Nu este.
Nu este moldovenesc, clar nu este.
Nu este.
Pentru că dacă vrei să vorbești moldovenește, o să vorbești cu ș, de exemplu, și dacă.
Aha.
Dar tu nu vorbești așa. Deci cine îți spune că este un accent moldovenesc, să știi că greșește.
Greșește, foarte bine. Și sunt niște, adică cu accentul, așa, cu enunțiare de cuvintele, uneori așa e mai complicat, dar simt că pot să fie înțeles, pot să mă comunic. Și îți spun ceva aici foarte interesant, știi? Că după 10 ani în România, mă prinde pe stradă, fie în Anglia, fie în România, Franța, Germania, oriunde, și încep să gândesc în limba română. Vorbesc cu mine în limba română și mai amuz așa de tare cu aceasta, știi? Și e foarte interesant și E ca cumva sufletul românesc cam trezit în mine.
Și a lăsat o amprentă puternică în conștiința ta,
Exact.
ceea ce este foarte frumos de altfel.
Chiar este foarte frumos și cred de aceasta simt acasă aici, ca sufletul meu este acasă aici. Exact cum am zis, aici am fost născut spiritual și aici am crescut și după aceasta a fost așa un gen de impregnare în suflet, în conștientul meu, care mi-a dat acest impuls să merg mai departe, să ofer aceasta, știi? Pentru că oricum orice fel de invitare spirituale sau trezire din suflet vine de aici, în sufletii noștri, știi? Și dacă noi nu punem suflet
În ceea ce facem,
în ceea ce facem și în față de oamenii pe care ne întâlnim sau colsanțele noastre și mai departe, sau viața în general, când întâlnim cu oamenii pe stradă, adică oamenii care nu sunt pe o cale spirituală, dar atitudinea noastră, adică manifestările noastre, se poate să fie mare ajutorul să trezește sufletul ei, să pune niște seminte dumnezească, să zicem, în pământul, adică în sufletul ei. Și așa am simțit aici, așa a fost într-un fel darul pe care am primit de la sufletul românesc. Așa să trăiești viața mai prin suflet. Și mai ales așa am simțit și pe ghidul nostru. Așa, un model. Da, sufletul lui este dincolo de... Nu pot să exprim așa cum este. Este un mister, este o magie acolo, așa, de o iubire fără măsură. Și exact prin aceasta, cum am zis mai devreme, aceasta prin identificare cu el. Știi? Și nu e ușor să trăim așa. Vine mai multe încercările, știi, și am observat și aceasta, știi, că cu cât mai străduim, cât mai multe obstacole apar pe cale, știi, și chiar cea mai important este să nu oprim. Noi este nevoie de o pauză, așa, să respirăm, să respiră bine,
să conștientizezi.
Da, sau să regenerezi, să mai adună energie în sufletele noastre, știi, înainte să mergem mai departe, dar pentru mine așa am descoperit că am trecut prin niște teste și chiar așa niște dubii, de fapt. De asta zic că nu e o problemă să avem dubii, dar trebuie să fim conștienți de aceste dubii și până la urmă să înțelegem că sunt dubii. Și mai mult, dacă aceste dubii nu se corespunde cu ce dorește sufletul tău, atunci pune dubii la o parte și mergeți mai departe. Chiar dacă nu este ușor, n-ai să alegi.
N-ai de ales.
N-ai de ales altceva. Și așa am simțit. Avem așa o spunere în engleză, probabil și în romană aveți, dar spun acum în engleză că what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Ceea ce nu te doboară te face mai puternic.
Exact. Și așa am descoperit și până la urmă, da, nu se oprește. Calea este viața noastră. Și nu aș fac nicio modificare din ce am ales acum cu 20 și un pic mai mult de ani. Chiar dacă vine momentele grele sau așa, dar pentru că sunt momentele, nu știu, așa de frumos, de creștere, de trezire, și nu numai în mine, dar în oamenii lângă mine, știi, în prieteni, în relații de iubire. Este o viață spirituală. Sunt experiențe așa de frumoase, când în mine și în oamenii în jur. Adică această creștere din suflet, trezire din suflet. Să vezi această transformare prin relații de iubire și profunzime din aceasta. E așa de minunat, așa să fiu pe o cale spirituală, autentică și să trăiesc o viață spirituală.
Benedict Newton, îți mulțumesc foarte mult pentru această întâlnire și ce pot să spun, te aștept și te rog să mai vii și până atunci îți spun la revedere și o seară bună.
Da, mulțumesc la fel.